Welcome to AP Design Digital Tools. In this video we're going to talk about how to start to think like an architect and create kind of conceptual massing for your project, how to best document that process. So we're going to use this site that was in an earlier video, and this is the context and this is the site, and we'll kind of create roughly that. We'll see. Okay, so let's just open up the video or the file that we have prepped already. So this is from InfraWorks. First thing we're going to do is make sure that our units are in our design units. So I'm going to design this in feet, so we need to get it out of meters, and we'll let it go ahead and do the scale, and then we're going to start drawing the property line. One thing we notice here already is that the model is not in the same orientation, so we're going to go ahead and select that model, and we're going to rotate it. Make sure you have vertex. This is a mesh, so we're going to need the vertex so that we can select things on the mesh. And we're going to just rotate that so it's straight up. North will be roughly up, even though Soho's cocked, which is why it came in kind of 20 some degrees off. Alright, so now we're going to draw that rectangle, which would represent the property line. We'll draw it there and there. And let's go ahead and project that down so you can see it on the surface. So now you have two curves, one's directly on the surface and one's coplanar. That's great. Alright, so let's get started. Right now things look very kind of axonometric. When I'm designing, I like to be in a kind of wider angle. So I'm going to go down to viewport properties, and you can change this from 50 to 18. Some people don't like modeling kind of in 3 dimensions. I love it. I like to always see the model as if it's like present in my hands. That makes me think more clearly. So that's totally a preference. So I'm going to select this one that's coplanar, and I'm going to extrude it up. If you watch my aliases on quick keys, you'll notice I'm using EC, which is extrude curve. You might want to watch those. And I'm going to extrude this up. I'm just going to select the top of these tall buildings. I don't really know how big this thing is. So one difference is I don't really have a program, so I'm just able to kind of on the fly. Obviously you would always have a program when you're designing, but we're just conceptualizing. Alright, so one thing we might notice is that it looks like we're a little off as far as that goes, so I'm just going to move the face of this in a bit so it aligns better with the context. And the next thing I want to do is I want to get an idea, which actually makes me want to move this to, I'll turn off that one that we projected, and I'll move this I'm turning off vertex. Everything's snapping to the wrong thing. So now I can do that. And that. Okay. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is maybe find out what the dimensions of this thing is, because it's going to be some weird dimension. It's whatever that block was, and you can see that those dimensions aren't really that helpful. So the first thing I would do as a designer is I would start to think about how to get that dimension to be a little bit more user friendly. So I'd either start to divide up the mass and go by some kind of nominal dimension, say 20 or 30 feet, and then leave the edge to be what maybe X, which would be the 12.81 feet, and do the same on this. But there's another thing called party walls that you always have to think about when you're building in a dense environment. So you end up needing to have some kind of firewall at the end of your building, or you start to step it back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually scale this thing back, but I'm going to use the stretch command. And the stretch command allows me to pick the 2 points of the object, and by hitting the length or typing in L there, I can tell it what dimension I want that. So I'm going to say that's 100. So you'll see that it stretches it back and leaves this gap, which I think you're going to use for me. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. If you notice, this is 94.28. I'm going to see what happens when I scale it to 100. See if I can get away with that. Doesn't look like it. So what I might do is then just go in and do the same thing, stretch it, length 96. Alright, so now I have two dimensions, 100 in that direction, 96 in that direction that I can use to my benefit. The other thing I might want to do is check the height. 162, I really kind of picked a random height, which was to kind of that building there, but there's no magic to that, so I'm going to make it like 150. So I can't type in 150, I have to hit length and then type in 150. Alright, so now this thing is of something that is, I understand, 150 high, 196. Cool. Alright, so now let's get set up with our layers. The layers always come in very, this is the default layers for Rhino. That's a horrible layer structure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this context. And I'm going to create a series of sub-layers on that. One is going to be ground, and the other will be buildings. And then I'm going to select and put those on there. So let me do that. I'm using change object layer. I'll move that up for the next one. Change object layer. And so now I can turn off that, or I can turn off buildings as I need to. Sweet. And then I'm going to call this. Oh, I don't want that in context. I'm going to create a new one that's called origin, and that's what this is. It's kind of the origin mass, and we'll call that there, and then I'm going to do a purge. So now we just have the original layers that I want to keep. Alright, this is the setup. I think we got everything going. Alright.